The detention cell on Krath Station smelled of ammonia and rust. Lieutenant Mara Venn sat strapped to the interrogation chair, her uniform torn and stained with dried blood that wasn't entirely her own. 3 rotations had passed since the ambush at the Tertius Belt, and she'd given them nothing. Across from her, Interrogator Zell circled like the predator his species once was. The Krathi were tall, scaled, with eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't imagine. They'd ruled this sector for 2 centuries before humanity arrived with their stubborn defiance and impossible resilience. "You will tell me where your fleet regroups," Zell hissed, his translator rendering the words in flat, mechanical tones. Mara met his gaze without flinching. "I'll tell you what I had for breakfast 3 days ago. Want to hear about military rations?" Zell's hand moved faster than most species could track. The crack of Mara's index finger breaking echoed off the metal walls. She gasped, bit down hard enough to taste copper but didn't scream. From the shadows in the corner of the cell, something small stirred. Rook had been there when they brought the human in. At 7 cycles old, he was barely past weaning, a Krathi cub whose parents served on the station. He'd wandered into the detention level out of curiosity, as cubs often did, and found himself watching something he didn't understand. He watched the human female refuse to break. Over 3 rotations, Rook returned every sleep cycle, hiding where the guards wouldn't notice. He watched Interrogator Zell apply pain with clinical precision. He watched the human bleed and bruise and break, but never yield. She sang sometimes when they left her alone, soft songs in her native tongue that Rook didn't understand but somehow felt. She counted her breaths. She did exercises with her bound legs that made no sense but seemed to give her strength. On the 4th rotation, after Zell had broken 3 of her fingers and threatened worse, he finally left her alone for an extended period. Rook crept from his hiding spot. "You should leave, little one," Mara said without opening her eyes. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "This isn't a place for cubs. How did you know?" Rook asked in his clicking juvenile Krathi. "I'm a soldier. I know when I'm being watched." She opened one eye. It was swollen but still sharp. "Your breathing gives you away. Also, you smell like fresh protein bars." Rook crept closer. "Why don't you tell them what they want?" "Because those coordinates would lead them to my people. My crew, my family." Mara shifted, wincing at the movement. "And I protect my family. Even when it hurts?" "Especially when it hurts." The cub tilted his head, processing this alien concept. Krathi valued strength and dominance. Loyalty was measured in fear and obedience. But this human spoke of protection as if it were natural as breathing. "What's your name?" Mara asked. "Rook. I'm Mara." She smiled despite her split lip. "You know what, Rook? You've got good instincts. Staying quiet, staying hidden. Those are soldier skills." Over the next 2 rotations, Rook visited whenever he could slip away. Mara taught him things, human things. How to read micro-expressions for deception. How to count pulse rates to gauge stress. How to remember details others overlooked. "See Interrogator Zell?" Mara whispered during one visit. "Watch his left hand. He taps his 4th finger twice before he strikes. It's his tell." "Why are you teaching me this?" Rook asked. "Because you're smart enough to learn and because—" She paused, something harder entering her voice. "Because maybe someday you'll need to know how humans think. How we fight. How we remember." On the 8th rotation, Zell entered with 2 guards and a portable neural disruptor. "Last chance, Lieutenant. The coordinates, or we bypass your stubborn tongue entirely and tear the memories from your brain." He activated the device. It hummed with malevolent energy. Mara looked at him with eyes that held no fear, only calculation. "You're going to kill me either way." "Yes," Zell admitted. "But this way is slower." He reached for her temple. Rook moved. For a cub, his claws were still sharp. He launched from his hiding spot and raked them across Zell's face, drawing 4 parallel lines of purple blood. The interrogator roared, stumbling back. "Guards! Seize that whelp!" But in the confusion, Rook darted to the control panel, exactly where Mara had told him it would be during their last whispered conversation. He slapped the emergency release she'd described. Mara's restraints snapped open. What happened next lasted 14 seconds. Mara moved like violence given form. The first guard's weapon became a weapon against the second. Zell reached for his sidearm and found his arm bent at an angle evolution never intended. By the time station security arrived, 3 Krathi were unconscious and Mara held Zell by his throat. His own neural disruptor pressed against his skull. "Stand down," she commanded in perfect Krathi. Blood dripped from her ruined hand, but her grip never wavered. The standoff lasted 3 hours. It ended with a prisoner exchange, Mara for 27 Krathi captives held by human forces. The Admiralty considered it a fair trade. Before they transported her out, Mara knelt beside Rook. "You saved my life, little soldier." "You saved mine first," Rook replied. "You taught me what loyalty means." She touched his snout gently with her unbandaged hand. "Remember everything, Rook, every face, every detail. In this life, memory is a weapon." Rook looked at Interrogator Zell, being led away in medical restraints, his face scarred. "I've memorized his face," Rook said quietly. "All 4 marks." 15 cycles later, War Leader Rook stood aboard his dreadnought as it entered human space. He'd risen faster than any Krathi in modern history. His reputation for strategic brilliance matched only by his reputation for honoring debts. He'd come not as conqueror, but as emissary. On the diplomatic vessel that approached, Lieutenant Commander Mara Ven, now sporting Admiral stars, smiled at the view screen. "Hello, old friend," Rook transmitted. "I've kept my promise. I remembered everything you taught me, including mercy." "And Interrogator Zell?" Rook's mandibles clicked in the Krathi equivalent of a cold smile. "He tried to stop my appointment to War Leader, cited my human sympathies as weakness. During the tribunal, I reminded the council of his failures, of how he broke regulations torturing a prisoner, of how he let a cub outmaneuver him." He paused, savoring the memory. "I broke his career as systematically as he broke your fingers, but I didn't stop at 3. Mara laughed, a sound that carried joy and justice in equal measure. "Welcome to human space, War Leader. Let's talk about the alliance you came here to build." As their ships docked, Rook thought of a human lieutenant who'd shown a cub that strength wasn't just about inflicting pain. It was about enduring it for those you protected. He'd learned well, and he'd never forgotten.